Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us. My name is Rachel, and I work at the Prince George's County Memorial Library System. Thank you so much for joining us. We're here with Coach Matt from Future Makers, and we are going to be building together a Wigglebot today. So I hope everyone has had a chance to stop by their library and pick up their Wigglebot kit. If not, that's okay. You can still join along with us and watch this video later when you do get your kit. We will provide information in the chat and on this video, after the video, on how you can pick up your own Wigglebot kit. So without further ado, here is Coach Matt.
Hi, thanks Rachel, I appreciate it. My name again is Coach Matt. I happen to be a person who loves to invent and make and explore with stuff. And I know that for the last, I don't know, feels like a million years, it's been really hard to get a hold of stuff to make cool things with. Well, it's pretty awesome now that we have a Wigglebot. Now, the thing that you may have is a cup full of stuff. So it's not a Wigglebot yet. Inside the cup, there's a few things that you may or may not know what they are. I suggest that since you're probably watching this as a video, you may want to pause and take a look at what you've got. Then, once you have a good sense of what it is, start the video again. I'm now going to pretend like you're about to pause now. And welcome back. So, in your cup, you probably found some sticks, maybe 3 of them. You probably found a piece of glue stick. It's that little sort of rubbery, round, clear-looking thing. You probably found a rubber, yeah, just dump that right out on the table. Glue stick. You probably found a rubber band. It might be yellow, it might be black. You probably found a little sheet of colored stuff. It looks like foam. It has paper on the back. There's lines cut in it. That's the sticky stuff. You're going to need that. And then, last but not least, you have the cup. You have some instructions, and then there's a motor. Yes, that's a real motor. Now, what are we going to power that motor with? Is there a battery in your cup? Is there a battery? If any of those things are missing, here's what you can do. If the sticks are missing, anything stick-like works. If the foam that's sticky on the back is missing, well, tape works. If the cup is missing, then I think that you have a real problem. If the motor is missing, I think we have a real problem. If the glue stick is missing, anything that you can mush on the little spinny part, the motor shaft, like an eraser or a piece of carrot or something that is mushy and sticky that you can stick on the end, like a piece of clay, anything that will stick and stay on the end of that motor shaft will work, and you'll see why. Let's get started. I'm going to be sharing my screen on and off. Probably not have technical difficulties, but if we do, just pretend like you didn't see it. Here we go. I'm going to share my screen. So, when we think about Wigglebots, what does it remind you of? Maybe robot, maybe something that wiggles. Yep, we're definitely making a wiggling thing. But more specifically, we're making a body that can stand on legs. We're adding a circuit that has an unbalanced weight attached to it. And when we activate that circuit, we're going to make it move using vibration. Okay, are you ready? Here we go. Circuits. You probably have heard this word before. A circuit is what's going to make that motor spin. You'll need a battery, and you'll notice that the motor has 2 wires. The wires are delicate. You want to be gentle with the wires, especially where the wires connect to the motor. In order to make the motor spin, we're going to need to connect one wire to one end of the battery and another wire to the other one. That way we'll allow power to flow through it. If the wires aren't touching the battery both at the same time, the circuit is open, it's broken, it won't work. But if both wires are touching one to one end, one to the other end of the battery, then the circuit is closed and the power will flow. and hopefully your motor will go. That's the battery in this diagram. And that over there is the motor. And if you notice, there's something familiar that's stuck on that motor that is spinning. What's going to make your Wigglebot wiggle are vibrations. You'll see that when you get your motor to spin and it has something stuck on the end of the motor shaft, we'll have to do that too, like an unbalanced glue stick. It'll make the motor actually move back and forth, almost imperceptibly at first, but very, very quickly. It will be spinning, but what's spinning is not balanced on the motor shaft. You'll see what we mean when you make it. And when something is unbalanced and rotates quickly, it vibrates. Balanced forces. Take a look at this picture. The illustration and the photograph show that a glue stick has been attached to the motor shaft. It's done by pressing the motor into the glue stick. If you attach the glue stick so it's balanced, meaning you push it right in the middle of the side of the glue stick, and an equal amount is hanging over on either side of the motor shaft, it's balanced. It's like a propeller on an airplane, perfectly balanced when it spins. And it'll rotate very smoothly if you attach it like this, but it won't wiggle. We need our glue stick to be not balanced. We need to attach it off center. If you look at the illustration and the photograph, you'll see subtle change, but the glue stick is stuck off to one side. When it spins, it changes its direction rapidly, left to right to left to right. And that's what will make it vibrate. You might be able to see this. They're not the greatest videos because the motor spins really fast, but the balanced motor on the left sort of spins smoothly. If you look closely, the unbalanced motor on the right is shaking back and forth very quickly. That's vibration. You'll see if you can see the difference when you make yours. So let's start making. Okay, I'm going to take a look and then I'm going to share some more. So let's do this. Let's take a look. You probably have everything that you need already laid out. Let's take a look. The first thing we're going to need to do is make sure we have everything we need. If you get a little bit lost, you can also refer to the printed illustrations on the back of your instructions. You may have already found that and might be making it all on your own. All right, I'm looking at what Rachel's got. I think you've got what you need. Rachel, you ready? Here we go. So first things first, you need to stretch the rubber band around the battery. This might be the hardest thing you've done for the last 3 weeks. Stretching that rubber band from end to end all the way around the battery. You have to use every bit of strength in your little tiny finger, but this is our battery holder. And this is going to be what allows us to attach our wires from our motor to our power source. Once you've stretched that band, then we need to do the other really hard thing. Sit the glue stick on the table or where you're sitting in front of you. Find not the center, but the off center. And you're going to push the glue stick down, push the motor down into the glue stick. It may take a moment and it may take some muscles, but when you're done, it should be stuck on the motor shaft. The motor shaft is that little piece of metal that looks like a little stick and it spins when you roll it between your fingers. Let's take a look at what we've got. So, Rachel, could you give that motor a spin by twirling the glue stick around, just to make sure it's on there? Perfect. And could you show us how you stretch the rubber band around your battery?
Yep, here it is.
Yep. It doesn't go loop-de-loop like a donut. It goes end to end. Fantastic. You're in great shape. Let's carry on. So now that we've been able to do the hardest things we've done all day, let's make this go. We're going to test our motor. Before we do anything, we're going to test to make sure that it works. I'll give you some pro tips as we go. Make sure that your glue stick is attached off center. So when it spins, it's unbalanced. There's your glue stick. Tuck one wire underneath the rubber band on one end of the battery. Then tuck the other wire, the metal part. You'll see the very ends of your wire have little shiny metal pieces. Then tuck the other end under the other end of the battery holder. I'm wondering if something happens. Rachel, let's take a look at what you've got. So it's hanging there, and you've got the wire, and it's sort of inserted in one end. Is it spinning? Nope. How do you think we're going to get it to spin?
Well, first I wondered if the wires were touching the right parts.
Yep.
And then I wondered if the black and the red had anything to do with it.
They do. But to get it just to spin, it's more important that we touch the wire to the little bump, the anode, that's on one end of the battery. Make sure it's touching the metal. And then we make sure the other wire is touching the metal that's on the flat end. If your motor is sitting on the table, you may not see it move. I think it's going to move. No dice? Oh.
Not yet.
Do we have a drama problem? This is unexpected.
I think we might have a fat finger problem where my fingers are just having trouble with the wire here.
I don't think you do.
Oh,
what happened?
You see it?
Fascinating. The way that our cameras work on our computers is it can't see it as fast as our eyeballs see it. So on the screen, it almost looks like it's going slow, but in fact, it probably is going really fast. And do you feel anything when it's moving, Rachel?
Yeah, it's definitely vibrating my hand.
Yep. And vibration is caused by an off-balanced, imbalanced weight that's moving in a circle, but actually the weight is being moved rapidly, left to right, left to right, left to right, or right to left, right to left, right to left, because there's more on one side than the other. That's what's making it shake. You can feel it. Now, if you just can't get that motor to spin, there could be two things happening. Number one, you might not be touching the metal parts with your wire. You might be touching the rubbery part of your wire to the metal. You can take your rubber band off and using your fingers, hold a wire so it's touching the anode, which is the bump, the metal of the wire to the anode, and the other end, hold the wire so the metal of the wire is touching the cathode, which is the flat end. It will start to spin. Now, if it doesn't start to spin then, the drama might be the battery is dead. Bum, bum, bum. You can try this on any battery that's that shape, a AAA, a AA, a C cell, a D cell, they all do the same thing. Do not use a 9-volt. That's the rectangular battery. It's too powerful. Okay.
I have another smaller AAA here just to try.
Yeah, and it should work. It's the same voltage. AAA batteries are 1.5 volts, just like AA batteries. AA batteries just last longer than the AAA. Yep, there it is. Okay, nerdy stuff is about to happen. Are you ready? Here we go. So, making a Wigglebot doesn't stop there. We need to make sure, remember, When you are making your Wigglebot, to make it wiggle, the metal of the wire needs to be underneath the rubber band, touching each side. The metal has to touch metal in order for the circuit to close. Right there. Pro tip. Okay. This, if you are looking ahead in the instructions on your little handy dandy instructions that came in the cup, you'll notice that there's an illustration of a cup with sticks stuck on it. We need to build the body. So the important part is your cup can be upside down. Your cup can be sideways. Your cup could be right side up, but it needs to be balanced. It needs to stand on its own. Use the sticky stuff. Take a strip of sticky stuff, peel it off, then pull on it and tear it in half. Tear it into 2 smaller pieces. Each of those pieces of sticky stuff can be used to stick the stick on the cup. Stick the stick. Which are you sticking? Are you sticking the stick to the sticky or the sticky to the stick? Doesn't matter. As long as the stick is stuck, you're set. 3 legs work. 2 legs, not so much. This cup doesn't have an inner ear like we do. It doesn't have a mechanism built into it that allows it to balance. So we need to turn it into a tripod. Tripods have 3 legs. They're very, very stable. So no matter how you want your cup to appear, upside down, like here in this illustration, or sideways, or right side up, it needs to stand on 3 legs. Looks like Rachel has got 1, 2, 3 legs. Let's give it the standing test. See if it'll stand on its own. Now, push down on the top, like pat it on the head, and give it a little press. Press, a little more pressure. Do you see your legs going sideways or wanting to come off? If you do, take another little piece of sticky stuff and stick at the bottom of where so you might have a piece at the top of the stick, put it in the middle so it's 2 pieces on a leg. 2 points of contact are much stronger than 1. Pro tip. You may need to, yep, there you go, perfect. You may find that as we move forward, you might have to make an adjustment. The legs on your bot might make it fall over. Don't worry. The nice thing about the sticky stuff is you can re-stick it. Okay, standing, check. Stick stuck, check. It's time to move forward. We need to add our motor and battery. Now, you have a circuit, excuse me, you have a circuit, you have this motor, and you have this battery. And you've already tested it, you know that it works. I have a motorbot frog in my throat. Better. If you notice in this illustration, we've made a backpack for the battery, and we've stuck the motor down so the glue stick hangs off the edge of the cup. Attach your motor and your battery circuit in any way you feel is the best way. Make sure that the battery holds tight so when you plug in your wires, you can let go and let the motor spin on its own. Also, the tighter you attach your motor to the cup, the stronger the wiggle will be. If you barely tape it on, a lot of the wiggle will stay in the motor and will not transfer through the body of your bot and down through the legs. Vibration is sort of a funny thing. When one thing that's vibrating is touching another thing, it makes that thing vibrate too. Vibrations are waves. They travel through things. Let's take a look. It is standing. It has a motor. It's missing something. Make a backpack for that battery. Take a piece of sticky stuff and stick that battery onto the cup. It can be on the top. It can be on the back. You may need to figure out where you want to position it because now you've added all this weight to the top. and it could make it fall over. So, yep, we're gonna re-add, that happens. Gonna need to re-stretch and re-add your battery band. Sometimes those things pop off and fly across the room. You need to be careful. Wear glasses if necessary. I always have my glasses on. Excellent. Now, you've got your battery backpack. Fantastic. I think it's time to plug it in. It is plugging in.
This is the hard part for me, Coach Matt.
What makes it that way?
Because getting the wire underneath this tight rubber band is, without ruining the actual body of the bot, is hard.
It is one of the hardest things that you're going to do all day. But that rubber band was designed so it would hold that wire when the whole thing is vibrating. And when it vibrates, oh, something's happening. Something's moving. What happens if you let go? Oh, it's moving. It's definitely moving.
Yes.
And if it shakes the wires out, you'll need to reattach them. You figured out how to turn it off, haven't you? When you disconnect the wire, the circuit is broken. When you reconnect it, it's making noise too.
Fast.
Yeah. So vibration, when you attach the vibrating motor directly to that cup, that vibration is going to travel through the whole thing. If you want to make it vibrate more, there's two things that you can do. Number one, obviously unplug it so it stops, but you can change the position of the glue stick, or you can tighten that motor down to the cup more. The tighter it is, the more that vibration will travel through everything, down through the legs, and make it wiggle off the table. That is it. That is a Wigglebot. Now, it doesn't need to stay this way. You can modify it. How about this, Rachel? While I'm doing some checking for understanding, if you want to modify your design slightly, just to make it act a little differently, that would be awesome. We'll check back in with you in a second. Okay. Cool. So you've got your motor and your circuit. You've got it attached. Remember, pro tip, that glue stick needs to hang off the cup so it will spin. It won't spin if it touches the cup. If it gets stuck on the cup, nothing moves. Test it. If it doesn't do exactly what you want it to do, adjust it. Engineers call that iterating, making a change, and then testing it. Very important to test it because you can fix it. A lot of things that we make have been tested and tested and tested and tested and tested, and then they're right. So the first time you make it, it might not be perfect. Definitely test it out and then adjust it and iterate. So let's refresh our memory. The battery is located where? Take a look at the illustration. Which part's the battery? Like, this may sound like the basics, but sometimes we forget. There is our power source. It's our battery. And our motor is here. It's a circuit because the electrons that are electrochemically made in that battery are traveling through the wires, going into the motor, exciting a copper coil that's wrapped around the motor shaft. The motor shaft has magnets attached to it. When the electrons flow through that copper coil, it makes that motor shaft spin because the magnets are getting pushed and pulled by the force of those electrons moving through those wires. And then a couple of electrons leave, go down the other wire, and push some electrons back into the motor, and it keeps flowing and flowing and flowing, and that's your circuit. But it won't be a Wigglebot if it doesn't wiggle. So ask yourself this question. If something is vibrating, is it because of balanced forces or unbalanced forces. Rachel, do you think it's wiggling because there are balanced forces at play or unbalanced forces at play?
I think it's unbalanced. And the reason that I say that is because I did my own iteration. I put the glue stick in the middle. You may have seen it earlier. And then I put the motor on the side here, and it actually didn't go anywhere. It spun and it gave me a nice little breeze, but it didn't go anywhere. So now my new iteration is to put the glue stick at the end unbalanced like it was, but then put the motor in a different position, maybe on the side of the cup, and see how that vibration changes the behavior of the bot.
Well, let's see. Have you had a chance to try it yet?
Nope. Whoa.
It's making a different sound too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
And it's also because it's hitting the battery.
So if you move the battery, if you move your battery backpack just a little bit, will that change things?
It does, but it's still moving differently. The bot is moving almost like in a circular pattern.
Yes. Yes. Some of yours are going to move straight. Some of them are going to go sideways. Some of them are going to spin. And you can change that also by the angle of the legs. If you make your legs super tall or super short or super sideways, it's going to move very differently. Okay, let's wrap up. We've made a lot of big things happen. We know that it vibrates because of unbalanced forces. So which of these motors do you think, by looking at the illustration, will vibrate because of unbalanced forces? The motor on the left or the motor on the right? I think it's going to be the motor on the right. I'm looking at this glue stick, and it appears that more of the glue stick is on the right-hand side of the motor than on the left-hand side. It looks like it isn't balanced, and it's definitely going to vibrate if that's unbalanced. Cool. Balanced and unbalanced forces, circuits. I thought this was about things that wiggle. It is. In order to make it wiggle, we needed to create a circuit that included a component that vibrated. And in order to get that component to vibrate, it needed to have an unbalanced weight attached to it that was spinning. There are other ways of making Wigglebots wiggle, but this way is probably one of the clearest ways. You can see it and feel it. Well, I hope that you've enjoyed designing and building your own wiggling thing. Here's one last pro tip. Take it apart and make it differently. What if you added something else to those legs? Could you make it a robot that can draw? Could it be a robot that could paint? Could it be a robot that eats pizza? Probably not, no. But what else could it be? By attaching a wiggling, vibrating thing, you could make that move in a totally different way. In fact, what if it didn't have a cup at all? You now have some fun stuff to explore. Way to go. Glad that you stuck with it. I think that this was pretty fun. What did you think, Rachel?
I have a new pet now, and I need to name it and put a face on it, because sometimes you get a little bored when you're sitting at home all day long. So I'm going to definitely do some iterations on my pet and give it a name. But I wanted to thank you, Coach Matt, and also everyone who participated along with us. Go to pgcmls.info to look for other STEM and science type of programs and activities. We have something for everyone: books, online resources, everything you can imagine. So thank you for joining us today.
Take care.
Bye.
Have fun making stuff.